No, that's great.
Okay.
That's great.
Okay. You're on. Hey everyone, welcome back to Be Not Afraid in our discussion, our ongoing discussion on ethnic studies. If you are new here, I want you to understand that ethnic studies, what we think it is, which is just a cultural learning of other people's cultures, is not the same as what's actually being taught. My co-hosts are Brooke and Lynn today, and they're both educators. And all of us have families that are interracial or biracial. And so we have a vested interest in what goes into ethnic studies and what doesn't. What we do is go through the California model policy page by page. Today, we are starting with page 43 at the end of it, and we are talking about globalism and continuing on the democratizing of a classroom. So if we can open up the pages. Oh,
You need
hang
to
on.
let me
I know.
share.
Yep. Should be able to do that now. Okay. Oh, I said 41, but I meant we're going to start at 43. Well, yes. Okay, here we go. At part 9, on the bottom of page 42, the bottom of page 42, sorry about that. It should be noted that while they are often conflated, an ethnic studies pedagogy is not the same as culturally community relevant or responsive teaching or pedagogy, sorry. The latter is but a facet of ethnic studies pedagogy. So this right here kind of nails home the opening statement that what we think of ethnic studies, and Brooke, Lynn, what would you think ethnic studies was if you got a paper sent home from your kids' teacher?
I'd be so excited. I'd be like, oh, they're going to learn about other cultures. I mean, you're talking if I didn't know.
Right.
Right.
Right. And you would think that that might mean choosing a novel, learning some food, maybe learning about the architecture, right?
Yeah. Well, and what I would think personally is like you, Brooke, I would be really excited because to me, it would be, we're going to learn about each other. We're going to become a more understanding race of people. We're going to love one another and make the world a better place.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think is really important is that we realize that in order for ethnic studies to work the way it's designed to work, it removes the idea of American exceptionalism. Because in order to be a global citizen, when we think of a global citizen, we think of, our part in the world. What does America contribute? We don't think of us all being equal, but again, another word that we hear a lot of is equity. Equity means equal outcomes. That is equal outcomes on a global scale. What do you guys think of that?
Well, that sounds very Marxist to me. And also because they keep changing the words a lot, a big reason that it's being accepted is because they make words mean different things. So there's the possibility that in 6 months, they're like, oh, actually, the new word is this. And this is what we're trying to do. So I think helping people, identify the vocabulary, but the principles as well, because the vocabulary will change. And to say, hey, if you see it doing this, or if it's incorporating this, then it's not what they say it is. It's not what you think it is. And the best way to combat that is, the ability to identify it is really hard because you have teachers teaching this who you believe in, who you trust, and they believe in it as well because they trusted who they learned it from. And so how can you find the place where the true detriment of globalism is entering into our communities? And
Well, to change the vocabulary is the best way to keep people confused.
mhm. And so what are the elements of globalism that are dangerous? I think identifying that and showing how it manifests, and even projecting this is the possibility of how it's going to manifest in the future, because we know it will change.
Right. So I'm going to go over and look at a page that I've got up, and hopefully I will do this right. Let me go into my share screen. Can you see my screen, you guys? Hopefully. I'm doing that right.
I'm not able to, but don't go by me.
Okay.
Yes, I can see it. This is awesome.
Yay. Okay. All right.
Okay, I got it now.
Okay, good. That is not what I'm looking for. Okay, there we go. So I pulled up New Discourses, and New Discourses is an extremely helpful site to learn what basically any word means. This is by James Lindsay. And what he does is he allows you to type in any word. So the two words that I typed in were global citizen and critical consciousness, because as you'll see in this curriculum, they do say that the goal is to bring students to a point of critical consciousness. So I'm just going to read this. The term global citizen currently has two obvious meanings, and these are easily equivocated between. One of these is technical and important. The other is colloquial and inaccurate. The existence of these two meanings, one cute and popular with an unreflective public, and one specific technical meaning, implying certain duties and extensions. So what we normally think of as that cute one is just America is our own country. We do things our way, and we appreciate what other people do in their way. And also, like, how can we work together, but not sacrifice who we are? Unfortunately, global citizenship requires sacrificing who we are. There is a group, and I know that there will be people who will say, well, this is insanity, but I would encourage you to go and look up a group called the World Economic Forum. In the World Economic Forum, they talk about things like money, and going to a digital currency and being able to know what every citizen spends down to the dime. When I'm finished with this, I will put a link to that article, because I try to only share with you guys information that I can prove. So, as there is no global sovereign to be a meaningful governing relationship to any people, the technical meaning of global citizen refers to no one. The less important, by the way, I'm reading the second paragraph. The less important colloquial one is either a misnomer or a purposeful deception, and given the quantity of deliberate activism on behalf of this term and concept, it is likely to be a purposeful deception used by some to take advantage of those who are unwise, i.e. the parent who comes home and thinks that being a global citizen is just learning to be kind and explore the world around them. People like to think of themselves as global citizens when what they actually mean is self-conscious denizen or resident of the globe, meaning someone who lives on the planet Earth, usually with a mind to some degree of international awareness and communication. Okay, to understand the manipulation in this equivocation, readers should note that everyone is a denizen or resident of the globe. And so this term describes no one in particular, while seeming to describe certain people more than others, those with an elevated global consciousness. Indeed, the notion that one can be educated as a global citizen depends on the idea of what it extends from an elevated consciousness of precisely this type. People in such positions are often used for totalitarian purposes. Okay, I'm going to stop there. What did you guys think? Did I read too fast?
No, you didn't. It's just so seemingly theoretical, and for people to think that it applies to them and that they need to watch out for it and take action and everything. It's like, that's James Lindsay, and he was involved with these people. And so boiling it down to how does it affect me and why should I be concerned and what can I do about it? I think, I've been studying the Constitution because it's Constitution Month, right? So we're reading a lot about that. And what people recognized back then was they wanted local government, and to let that always be our priority, and not wanting a global power to control us, because it really limits our freedoms, our beliefs, our individual desires, and how we operate. And I think grounding ourselves in those principles of individual liberty, and also allowing that for others, is the antithesis of globalism, and also the remedy if we're really aware of that. And so, you can say, hey, globalism might appear as King George, right? That's how globalism appeared back then. Globalism has appeared in this instance of the World Economic Forum. That is another appearance of globalism. Well, what does that look like? And how is it wanting to take away from your individual liberty? Well, you have to go by their standards, and also ESG scores. And that's another form of globalism, because your rights as an individual to believe how you want and act how you want is going to be limited. So I think framing it all with the basis of individual liberty is what we need to function the best in this world and to be global citizens, right? At least in the colloquial term that he described. So, what everybody thinks it is, and when they say it. And the nefarious purposes that he described, if everyone can see the face in history, King George, then they would say, oh, wait, yeah, I don't know if globalism means what I think it means, because my primary value that I will uphold till I die is individual liberty. And if it comes in contact and whatever conflict with globalism, then globalism is irrelevant. It's just a way for domination based on someone who knows better. And I know best for my life. And that's going to look really different from other people who are good people, just because I'm an individual with different purpose and aptitudes and talents than you are. And so that individual freedom is primary. So I think boiling all that theoretical, nefarious stuff that you think doesn't apply to you does within that framework.
Well, and I like that you said that they feel they know better. I was thinking the other day about the term noble savage, and that really seems like what these elitists, whether or not that's on a global level or a federal level or even a state level, seem to feel that parents, if we don't have the right kind of knowing or the right education or the right consciousness, we are noble savages. We are people who are doing the best we can, but we really can't be trusted to raise our own children. And so all of that comes into our schools through this. That's what critical consciousness is that your children, they're smarter than you, because we are going to put all of our knowing and all of our rightness into your children.
So who coined the term noble savages?
I cannot think of who did. Are you going to tell me it was King George?
Yeah, that's great. It probably was. But it's such a quirky term. If you think of it, it's like, they're like, now let's figure out a term that will convey that kids think their parents is awesome. And so we give them noble, but then we give them savage so that they have reason to rebel against them. So they're really crafty with their words. And the when they said Yankees, right? That was a derogatory term, and then they made a song
Right.
about it. And so when you say noble savage, I'm like, I'm gonna make up a song that makes the noble savage the victor, like because it's like, that
Yeah.
guy, Mel Gibson, Braveheart, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, and it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna win here. We're not gonna back down. And
Right.
there's also to infuse the understanding that in a noble savage, and this is if we overtake the term, there
Right.
is intellectual understanding, and there's love, and there's bravery, and there's like whatever else it is, because if they want to play with words, we can play with words too. But the
Right.
truth is still the same. Parents love their kids the best, no matter what term you want to give them. So,
Yeah.
and
Lynn,
here's
did you
my
have a
kid.
thought on it?
I do not. You guys are talking up a storm and it's perfect.
Okay, let's um let's go back to the next page, because I want to point out why I thought when I saw it was noble savage. Now, that is not mentioned in the curriculum. It just happened to be something that I was listening to, and I thought, holy cow, even our governor seems to think of us as noble savages. Really? Just
Really.
I'm
Yep.
going to appoint who I want to appoint because I know better than these silly people.
Oh, good luck to you. Good luck to you.
So let's scoot down from page 42, 43. Yeah, just the top. Educators today have a tremendous responsibility to students. Yep, because they know better than parents. Teaching content, cultivating their social and emotional skills, because we're not capable of it as parents.
Well, it's so not fair to teachers. Like, seriously, they get in this profession because they want to teach them academics. They love kids. They want, like, that's why I wanted, it's a creative profession. How do you reach this kid and not this kid? And you use all these different things. But when you make them responsible for the social, emotional skills, like, yes, you want to help them, you want to be whatever, but it takes away from, like, I want them to learn Spanish, dude. But if I have to be in there, it's not fair to anybody to throw this on the teachers.
It's not what they went to school for.
Yeah.
Well,
So as parents, it's like, no, hello, I'll call me if they need to come home. I'll show up,
Well, the rest of that sentence kind of sums it up. Cultivating their social emotional skills and preparing them to be informed and active global citizens. That's where you were speaking earlier about everyone is the same. There's no room for personal progress. There's no room for personal thought. We are all equal as one. We know how that's worked out for Russia. Okay, and anytime the irony, and maybe this isn't a place for me to air this, but the irony of this conversation is that there are countless people who have gone from countries that practice equity, that are in dire poverty and have the largest drinking rates, that are trying to come to America as they've known America to be and how it has been in the annals of history. So the global citizenry, where everyone is equal, if you open your eyes and look around the world where they have tried to implement this type of philosophy, we can see where the country is. There is only an exempt few in number who do not fall into that. They are the ones that are totalitarian and running the system of the global citizenry. So it's
exempt few.
What?
Who are the exempt few?
I'm talking about the power holders.
The elite.
Talking about the people with money.
I thought you were talking about Sweden.
It's funny because people will say that, Sweden is the perfect example of socialism. And they're like, yeah, we're not really socialists. So there's that.
Well, my friend fled Denmark because she wasn't able to raise her kids. She was Danish and she would have to work, and she has 6 kids. And she's like, I was not allowed to raise my own children in Denmark. I was required to work and go. So you think of all these great social programs and everything, but the reality is, can you parent your kid there? And
I think
so
we need
people use these nations where, oh, it's functional, look, it works. They're not blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, go talk to everybody there. Have you? And so even those elect few, and I'm sorry to get you derailed, you just meant the elite, but there's that understanding as well, you know, for people who use examples that aren't exactly.
And I think we
Well,
need to be careful about things like the word all, because they'll say women's rights for all. All women should be able to work. They don't mean we should have the choice. They mean all women should be out of the house and their kids should all be raised by government schools. That's what all means. So
well,
go ahead.
no, I don't want to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Well,
Uh,
so last year they had a women's rights event, and they were talking about that, how empowering it was that all women would have this chance to be to have equitable outcomes, basically. And that is where it pushes. It pushes us into, you do not have the option to stay home and raise your children, and that is a global initiative.
well,
Because,
and
go ahead.
oh, Carrie, I'm sorry. You take a
It's okay.
deep breath.
It's
And
just
I take
because
a breath and I just butt in. I'm so sorry.
you're fine.
That's
there's
what
a
you have to
difference.
do, Lynn.
I know.
I'm so sorry, but there's a difference between, while socialism is how you get your foot in the door, communism is a whole, and globalism, you go from one to the biggest of all in control. So socialism is not the same as communism or even globalism.
Yes.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
And fascism isn't the same as communism. Communism is worse than fascism because they didn't require that you give up everything to the state. I mean, they were like, they were terrible, but still communism was worse than fascism.
They also didn't come for your mind. I was just listening to Konstantin
Yes.
Kissinger.
The
on
Russian
trigono-
guy.
Yes, the Russian guy on trigonometry. And he said the biggest thing is that they came for your mind.
Mhm.
Now, as you follow these parents, as you look at what we're doing, they are coming for our children's minds. They are coming for their hearts, and they are coming for their souls. They are telling them that the only way to be a kind, gentle, good human being is to believe exactly what they tell them to believe.
Mhm.
They are going after, in this next paragraph, students are encouraged to engage in dialogue within a community of learners, to look deeply, to question underlying assumptions, and discern underlying values. This is where they will start telling our children that your Christian faith or your Muslim faith or your many other faiths that I don't feel comfortable speaking on, that they're not accepted because they're not tolerant enough. So they're going to teach the kids in school why their faith is problematic, why their values are problematic, why it's unfair that your mother doesn't have to work, why it's unfair that you have a father. So we don't acknowledge fathers because some people don't have them, and that's unfair, i.e. inequitable.
So
I
I have something to say about that if you're not done.
No, go ahead.
If you're done, I mean.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So one of the things that people are afraid to teach is the ideal, because a lot of people don't fit into the ideal. But if you teach the ideal, then you're teaching the pain point. So it's kind of weird that I teach my adopted children that the ideal is children are entitled to birth with their father and mother. But that helps explain that sense of trauma and loss at their adoption. Like, I was in somebody's tummy and I went in 4 different homes in the foster home system, and I needed a place. I'm like, yes, that was hard. And that that is trauma. And that's because the ideal is you have your biological mother and father, and that's what you want to strive to provide for your kids. Now, it's a hard thing to teach because you don't want people to feel less than, or that their life isn't whatever. But if you don't teach the ideal as a healthy place for kids, and like, I believe that my kids are in their ideal right now because it was an unsafe place. So ideal is first this, then safe place, then you know what I mean? Like you go through this line of what's ideal, and their life is as ideal as it can be right now. But if you don't say, here is the ideal, and everybody is trying it, then you say, well, actually anything goes. And then when you're sitting there wondering, if you have two moms or two dads, and you're like, well, who's my birth dad or who's my birth mom? And then you start feeling guilty about that because you don't want them to be, there's that sense of guilt, like you can only love one. I've always said you can love two moms. Yeah, because they're birth mom and me, so I've tried to make space in their heart for that. But anyway, that sensitivity towards people who don't have that experience makes room for, here is anything actually goes. And so to question underlying assumptions is to say, well, actually, it's okay if you have this family lifestyle or this one, and I'm not meaning it in a shameful way, but it's a hard thing to explain. I'm trying.
But Brooke, too, what you're saying is correct. But I know that goes back to the saying, which this curriculum is adversely against, because they keep the student confused, angry, and I guess, and there's more to it than that, because when you're teaching these concepts, it is not a peaceful instruction. It is not a peaceful goal, but it goes down to students. With what you were saying, students will rise to the level of expectation. That's just what it is. And I know personally, which I know both of you do, I know of situations of the and Carrie, you've been right there in the trenches, but I know of people who have had the most adverse situations, and they have risen above that for whoever was their mentor, whoever was their icon, or even if it was just the spirit within them. So what's happening with this curriculum is it's keeping the students on a pathway of, and I don't want to keep using the word activism, but that's what it is. It's actively engaged in culturally changing the communities according to what you think it should be. This is not an individual venture. This is not an individual learning process. And so back to what you were saying, you're trying to teach your kids, but students will rise to the level of their expectation. They do. You give them a reason to excel, to perform, a concept of who they really are and how they play in the game of things. I don't know. There's so much to be said,
No,
but
let's go back to that term, the ideal, because a queering education is the opposite of an ideal. Just yesterday, I should have put it up, but someone had a picture that said the future is queer. I don't know, Brooke, if you can find anything like an image of that. But queering does not mean that the future is accepting of less than the ideal. The future means that there is no longer any kind of ideal.
right.
So it literally means that all societal norms. So people will say, that's it. Yeah. So this person,
Is that
this
Emily?
is a hard one for me.
Is this
Yes.
Emily Drabinski?
No, it's not. No,
who
I
is
believe
it?
I believe the name is Emily though. No, it's
Oh.
Amy.
Amy.
So this person, this is a really hard one, but this is what it means to embrace queer, whatever. This person has a YouTube channel called Queer Kids Stuff. It is for ages 3 and up. It teaches children concepts like consent. I give you this toy, you give me this toy. And draws the line on how that's sexual and how everything is okay as long as you consent. This is a poster in some of our schools locally. So the future for our children through ethnic studies is unapologetically queer. That does not mean stabilization. And that is the big point, is that we think that so many good-hearted people think, oh, we need to be kind, we need to be accepting, because if they don't feel like they have this place of love and contentment, then they're going to kill themselves. That is literally the narrative that we are hearing. But you have to understand that in queer pedagogy, there is no room for love and acceptance. This is about creating a constant disruptive energy for all children all the time. Children are turned into activists, and that is as far as it goes. It is problematic for them. And they put it in their own books. In Gail Rubin's queer theory, they actually say that the normalization of homosexuality is a problem. So, because I know that
who said the normalization of homosexuality is a problem? Who?
Gail Rubin and many other queer theorists.
Why is the normalization of homosexuality a problem to queer people?
Because you can't dismantle a system when people are content. So all the way back to where does critical race theory come from? Well, they wanted to bring Marxism over. They wanted to destroy, but they realized you can't destroy our class system because people in the middle class are happy. If you can work hard enough to get yourself into a place where you can provide and have the things you want in life, and maybe it's not a mansion, maybe it is, but maybe you're just fine being this, you are normal, you're stabilized in your life, then you won't fight. This is all about, that's why we want that oppressive mentality all the time, is so that people will fight and they will dismantle the system. And they have no idea that the people funding for their dismantling of the system are those elites on the top who get to live like the kings. But that's what this is all about. It's never been about stabilizing. It is not about the fact that a man and a woman, or it's not about the fact that 2 men can get married or 2 women can get married and live a normal life and be your neighbor and have dinners with you and have Thanksgiving with you. That is not the goal here.
It is the destabilization of
constantly.
society.
Yes.
It's and the destabilization means just making people mad all day, right?
It means destroying everything and getting to a point of communism. Because communism allows the people on the top it's extreme totalitarianism. And people don't understand that.
The reason these kids are activists is because they're so upset and they just see injustice or they perceive injustice upon injustice upon injustice. And
it makes them useful, doesn't it?
Yes. And so it's this anger instead of this. So my favorite, I just saw this PragerU video. Did I show it to you last time?
I don't know. What was it?
It was just about how the state of the world has never been better. And it was such a refreshing message. I showed it to all my kids. I'll give you the title in a second.
Yeah.
But it talked about how less people are starving and more people have access to healthcare, and dentistry is like the big difference between that and the rest of the history of the world. And it was such a gratitude inducing message. And I was like, this is amazing. This makes you want to go out and say, let's keep doing what we're doing for people around the world. And that positive energy is so much more empowering than this negative energy that's being stirred up. Yes. And so this anger and so my suggestion is, if you want the colloquial, everybody's nice to each other term of global citizens, show what's right and engage with that joyful engagement in your community. So if you're breeding acting, because it's like, how can I tell the difference? Going back to your life and not the theoretical larger scheme. If this is helping the kids find joy in contributing to their community, or if they're doing it out of anger, that's the difference. And that's how you can know. And also honoring their beliefs and their right to have their beliefs and their family's right to have their beliefs. Because if they feel like, to be a globalist, you all have to believe this and get rid of your problematic ideas that are different from ours. If you could say, no, instead, I hold my beliefs dear and I'm proud of them. And you get your right to believe what you believe too, instead of everybody has to be the same on the same page.
But that's not where we are. That is not what this is. This is exactly the opposite. Lynn, you had something.
The problem with all of that, not that there is a real problem with what you just said, Brooke, but the problem behind that is that this is not the end goal of the people that are writing this type of curriculum. And so if you and Carrie and I and anyone else that comes on to this medium and we talk and we are over a curriculum, this is what we would do. I mean, I know how I would write. I know how I taught. I know how you guys teach. The problem is, and the whole objective for what we're doing is to show the discrepancies and the counterproductive behaviors in the lessons that are being taught and the philosophies being pushed in curriculum like this, because this is not the end goal. The end goal is for those few who want to be a part of this. I don't know what's the word, this global supremacy group.
Yes, and they're the ones who are funding this. This is billions of dollars into our schools to make sure that our kids believe this.
You need to remember too, along with all of this that we're talking about, this picking the pages, the activism, the students becoming whoever they're trying to make them become. You have to remember what I know you've heard. I have heard it out of the horse's mouth, quote unquote, several times, is that the population of the planet is too big. It needs to be narrowed. That means if they keep narrowing it by whatever means they narrow it, that means those people at the top have the control. They have better control over what's taking place. So that's the end goal, is to bring something like this to the open so that people can see what is being pushed. Because you and I know how the world should be run as far as teaching our children the concepts of real love and acceptance, which is what we, instead of what they're pushing in activism and privilege and supremacy and, goes on and on.
Absolutely. Brooke, will you reopen the ethnic studies? I just want to make sure that we hit our points.
I just wanted people to see this. It's called The Best Time to Be Alive. And just watch it. We won't watch it now. But The Best Time to Be Alive. And notice the positive energy for good change. And that's the difference we're talking about. That's not what this is.
Right.
That's how you can sense the difference.
That's wonderful, Brooke.
Yeah. Make sure that we put that on everything. And I will definitely put the link in the bottom in our show notes. Okay. That word humility is another one of those words that we think sounds like a good word, but they mean it as something different.
Yes.
So
students, humility is submissiveness.
Yes. And that confidence is for those it's centered around. So humility is for some of the kids and confidence is for others. Because I'm sorry, but if a Caucasian male walks into the classroom and has a lot of confidence, he may be on the list. So, so listen to this. Look at the line after that.
Yeah, right? Oh my gosh.
Would you read that out loud for me, please?
Humility. I want to read it.
Okay.
Humility because they come to see that they have no corner on the truth. You can't believe something that's true unless we tell you what it is. Oh, yeah,
boy.
no, this is a totally different approach. It's the opposite of freedom of religion, freedom of belief, freedom of speech. It is the opposite. So to say you have no corner on the truth, it would be better put, in my opinion, to say you have just as much right as anybody else to believe what you believe is the truth and to speak what you believe is the truth. And this is saying, sorry, you don't have truth, baby.
But
You
on
know,
top of that, I still want the facts.
What?
So I said, I still want the facts. I still want evidence. I want an evidence-based truth. Okay. If somebody comes in and says, I am so afraid to walk to the grocery store because as a Black person, I know the chances of me getting shot are blah, blah, blah. It's not the truth. It is not the truth. If you say, 80%, there's some guy who said something along the lines of 80% of African Americans are shot every year. I mean, it was something ridiculously stupid. And you're like, so can you give me some facts on that? We are told that every single minority group is likely to commit suicide. I want the facts. I
Well,
want to know which group, because what I'm seeing of the people who are most likely to commit suicide are those white boys who are made invisible in the classroom. At least that's what I'm seeing in terms of the reports of young people who are dying, who actually kill themselves.
Well, and Carrie, it goes back to the text again with what Sleater has said over and over again. I've heard her repeat it. Is that studies show your academics go up. Studies show there's more graduates with this type of teaching. Studies show. Well, she hasn't cited anywhere to find those studies. And unless there is proof, you can say anything, and in the way you say it, it helps people believe it or not. So
right,
that's exactly right.
And also studies show, but if your institutions have been captured, what does that mean? Why did our studies change so much in 2 years? How come we knew before that people transitioning do better when they've had multiple years to have therapy and to think through the process and to live in that without medical intervention? But then all of a sudden, all of the doctors have changed their minds in 2 years. So you have to wonder, this is the thing, like, you can easily manufacture truth today.
Uh-huh.
So I'm interested in the facts. And to me, that's humility. Humility is, I have an opinion and somebody comes in and they're like, actually, here's a stack of all of this information that I have. And I can actually go through it and look at these things. But that's not what happens. Oftentimes when these people will speak, they will speak super fast. They will give you no time to rebuttal. Ibram X. Kendi does not debate. Same thing with Kimberly Crenshaw. These people do not debate because they want to be honored and respected, but they don't want their opinions questioned. And I think that is what happens a lot of times. That's the quote unquote confidence that people have. They cannot be questioned because they're telling their truth. Let's go down to this next line. Building safe, democratic, and empowering classrooms is both an art and a science. This one it actually creeps me out a little bit. Skilled teachers use a variety of techniques to create a sense of trust and openness. That doesn't mean that teacher is truly trustworthy. My background's in theater, and I can make people feel as warm as I want them to feel. I can also make people feel extremely unwelcome if I want to. And it is that quick. So creating a sense is creating the theatrical world for these kids. A theatrical world, if you create a theatrical world, if you know that your kids are super interested in X and you make your room super that then you become their favorite person. And if you become their favorite person, then anything that you tell them, they're going to do. What we're doing is manipulating children.
Yep.
Well, I don't know that we can like assign that intent to this. I mean,
this
I think
line.
there's the danger of that happening, but assigning that intent can cause people to discard our arguments. So
Okay. That's how I felt personally as somebody who would be very good at doing that. But yeah, okay. So skilled teachers use a variety of techniques to create a sense of trust and openness, to encourage students to speak and to listen to each other, to make space and time for silent reflection, to offer multiple avenues of participation in learning, and to help students appreciate the points of view, talents, and contributions of less vocal members. So you guys have no questions, no concerns about that?
No,
Yeah.
a lot of the things that are being said, if you were to take them out of this curriculum and just put them on a piece of paper for someone to read, they sound good till you read a little bit further. You read above. It's like they always say, when you're teaching reading and you don't understand the meaning of what's being said, you read above it, you read below it, you read around it to understand the context in which it's meant.
Okay. And see, this part, I don't have an issue with this bottom line. But Brooke, I do appreciate you pointing that out, because I do not want to be too emotional when
Well, I think you see it because it has existed, and that's how they do it. And also I need pushback as well. Like, I'm looking at this line, humility, because they come to see they have no corner on the truth. I think maybe I totally misinterpreted what they meant, and I went off on my own tangent, marching into the woods. And so I think it helps to just dialogue with each other about it. So.
I don't think you did on that
Oh,
one.
really?
because-
Okay. I
No,
was trying to
because-
listen to what you were saying. I'm like, I think I might have been off on that one.
No, because what they're saying is that there is no truth.
That's what I thought too.
That is
Okay.
what they're saying, and that is
Right.
throughout the curriculum. That is the thing, and that is part of progressivism. There is no truth but power.
Well, the second part of the sentence shows that is their opinion substitutes as the truth. Your opinion is the truth. Your opinion is the truth. So everything is true. There is no facts like what you said. And that's a moral relativism. Sorry. Truth
Yes.
doesn't exist. And that's the problem with this line. Okay. Thank you for the backup there. I was confused.
Okay. I feel like I might be missing something in generative discussions, but I don't know what it is. So I'm going to leave that one alone. Okay.
So I don't know if this just means they want to change their whole mind. Like that, is that the purpose? Is it to learn to speak civilly with differing opinions? Or is it to learn to change their minds? Opportunities. I think it's good to have opportunities to engage with counterparts of different backgrounds. But what's the intent? And I think it should be stated clearly that the intent is not to persuade people to believe in, to let people believe as they do, whether it's religious or whatever. So, or not, and say, this is what we believe in, that we can have differences of opinions and still speak civilly. And the problem in this is what is the end result that they're aiming for, that they think is the truth? What have they decided ahead of time? And I think that will differ with each teacher. So because that differs with their understanding of the good, in a place where it's government paid money and classrooms, et cetera, it should be backed by what our country stands for, is that there is diversity of thought. And that diversity of thought gets to be respected and interacted with civilly, and you don't have to change to be acceptable.
I agree with all of that. However, I think that we're bringing in our ideals. If we stick directly to what this says that everything about ethnic studies has to be that double helix. So everything needs to point back to their objective, which is to teach the kids to see oppression and how to
Right.
dismantle it.
And that's what they have repeated. I don't remember which page it was on, but it spoke of quite extensively the people that were to hold these positions. And that's including cross-curricular, training them through cross-curricular motivations within the different subject areas to make sure that this is included and that they could reach out into the community. I mean, I took it as being, I don't even have to have a degree. If I'm qualified and I can get in that classroom, that I can talk up what they want to have talked up, I qualify for that position. So they're handpicking and deliberately teaching their philosophies.
Yeah. And I think it's also telling future citizenship instead of current citizenship as a citizen of the United States of America, where you have freedom to believe and speak differently. Future citizenship implies this globalism that you
Right.
were mentioning, which is similarity of belief.
Right.
Can we keep going down? I think.
Where are you now, Carrie, please?
We're at the end
43?
of 43. At the end of 43, going into 44. I think though we have gone an hour, so probably should wrap up and start there next time. Let me see. I just want to see if there's any points that we missed. I feel like we didn't even hit the term critical consciousness, which I guess will have to be next time.
That's okay. A lot was said today.
Yeah, I think we got a lot said. Friends, I just really hope that you will look into and not just take those blanket statements, not just go, oh well, I really like the cartoon drawing on my kid's worksheet, so I'm sure it's perfectly safe. But look into what the goals are. Do your research and help your kids to be aware. It's really sad. When I first met Brooke, I said we have to teach our kids to be activists, or they will. And I was with a group. I don't know if you remember this, Brooke, but I was with the group, and everybody was like, "Well, we don't want to teach our children to be activists. They're kids." But the reality is that if we don't teach them, then the other side will, and they're waiting. They're waiting to do it. They are hoping.
Well, and there's a difference. Go ahead, Brooke.
Oh, no, I think we need to teach our kids to get involved and stand for good and be a light so kids can discern the error. So I'm with you. Maybe I told you that before, but today I'm telling you this.
Lynn, what were you going to say? Lynn,
What's that?
what were you going to say?
Oh, no, Brooke said it.
Yeah.
She said it. The kids need to be taught within their homes, their value system, the right and wrong, so that they can be examples to the kids around them, and they're not going to shy away when kids start to put pressure. I've seen kids here do that, but I know that kids are very vulnerable as well. So they need to be taught not to be so vulnerable and to be outspoken and stand up for what they know to be right. I mean, and that includes adults.
Right. And one of the huge things about how you can teach your kids to value liberty, that doesn't seem like it is turn off the screen and have your kids go outside and work. If they work and they have this sense of accomplishment, that sense of accomplishment makes them feel important. It makes them feel like they contribute to the world.
Thank you
what we're
for saying
trying
that.
to do, Yeah, what we're trying to do, or what they're trying to do, going back to the World Economic Forum, they openly say that our kids will be a useless class soothed by drugs and video games. These are the people who are funding our social and emotional learning in our ethnic studies programs in our schools. So,
Thank you for interjecting that.
yeah. All right, my friends, that is a wrap for today, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.